Welcome to my grow room. This is a little setup I have in my basement where I have been growing things. It is December, so I don't have a lot of things growing, but there's certain things that take a bit of time, and I have some cuttings as well. The thing I wanted to talk about today, though, was heat treating. I have some seeds in here, right here in the front. These are echinacea. If you see, there are 4 packs there. The 2 packs in the back are seeds that I did a heat treatment on before I planted them. I was kind of curious to see if I could speed up germination and just get these going a little quicker. I actually have a lot of self-sown echinacea in my garden, so I don't really need to plant echinacea this way. But I think sometimes it's really helpful to know what's possible. And I have heat treated some hollyhock seeds in the past, so I was curious about echinacea. This pack here is full of echinacea seeds that I just planted. I didn't do anything to. They aren't stratified or anything. This one that's here is actually a heat treated seed. I had an extra one. I didn't know where to put it, so it went in there. Over here are some seeds that I did water germination on, which is just putting the seed in a glass of water and leaving it on the counter. I do water germination for orange butterfly weed. That seems to be really successful. It germinates really quickly, even without stratification, and I can pot them up. And they're one of those plants, just like echinacea is. It's pretty small the first year, and when I plant it outside, it takes even longer to get it going. I figure if I plant these early, I can get them to a certain size. I can vernalize them outside to trick them into thinking they've gone through a winter, and put them out in spring, and probably get them to flower this summer. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm noticing my lavender is trying to creep in here. Lavender will be a discussion for another day. So I'm going to go upstairs and heat treat some other seeds today, just out of curiosity, to see if it maybe makes them germinate a little faster and gives me some other options for plants that I can have in the spring. So I am setting up my heat treating area. This is a sous vide that I have. It's like this. It goes into water. If you've never done any cooking with sous vide, the idea is that it brings the water to the exact temperature that you want it. If you're cooking meat or something, it brings it up to a temperature where you're not going to accidentally overcook your meat, and then you sear it at the end. I actually use mine more for seeds than I do anything else. I'm not a huge meat eater, so and I know it can do vegetables, but anyways, this is the setup. They actually have sous vide settings on a lot of Instant Pots and other similar kind of pots now, and other smaller systems. This is actually just a pot that I have here, and then the wand is the sous vide part. So I have set this to 110 degrees, and I had filled it with hot water, so it's actually a little hotter right now than I need it to be. But I'm going to be doing the heat treatment on some seeds for 12 hours, and I'm just going to see what happens, just out of curiosity. It's fun to experiment with seeds, and sometimes you stumble on some really good pieces of information. So I chose these because I bought these kind of on a whim at a local nursery. This is Palmer Penstemon and Blue Mountain Penstemon. These are native here, and I doubt that they are very hard to grow if you just direct sow them. The problem we have here is I'm just outside of Denver. It is really dry here, and to have to keep an area moist while seed is germinating sometimes can be a bit tricky, and I've certainly had plenty of times where I've put seed down and had the best intentions to make sure that it stayed watered until plants were established, and then, for whatever reason, just didn't. So I do mostly direct sowing because that's the easiest, but especially when I have just a small amount of seed from something new that I don't really have experience with, I kind of like to test it in some other ways to see, if I can even get, say 5 plants out of this that I can get in the garden. Those 5 plants will make enough seed to self-sow easier like the next year. But I worry a little bit about putting all of this seed in the ground because it's just no guarantee. I've had too many times where I've dumped whole seed packets in the ground and gotten nothing for it. So I'm going to heat treat these seeds and see what happens, just out of curiosity. Okay, so I have my containers set up. This is just a little like Tupperware container that's for a lunchbox, like for dip, is what I use. I have 12 Blue Mountain Penstemon seeds in here. I'm going to put them in the container. I have labeled the top so that I know which one it is because I also have Palmer that I'm going to do at the same time. I'm also going to put 12 more of these in a glass of water on the counter to try the water germination, and then I'm going to put 12 more just in a cell pack and see what happens with them. My guess is, because this is a perennial and it does say to stratify it, I'm guessing because that stratification is needed that the heat treating is more likely to work. I would love to know the science behind it. I don't exactly know why that works with other seeds, but we'll see. I mean, if it's going to work, it probably will work with that. But I do know with orange butterfly weed that I don't do heat treatment on those, and those are also supposed to be stratified, yet I can get them to germinate very easily in a glass of water without stratification. So, it may not be necessary. So we're just going to see. This is 12. I'm using 12 because my little cell packs have 6 plants each, and if I get 100% germination, I figure I can put them all in there. I am not doing more than that because, it's a long way till spring, and I really don't want to have a bunch of plants hanging around longer than I need to. If I can get away with starting them a little later in the season, then that makes the most sense. Otherwise, I have to repot them several times before we get to spring. So we're just gonna see. Okay, so these are in the container. I'm gonna close it up and I'm going to put them in my pot. I think I'm gonna label these on the outside just to be hopeful that one of them stays. They should. I mean, it's Sharpie marker. It should be fine with water. So the whole thing is filled, and then I'm going to be submerging these in the heat. They need to stay at 110 for the whole time. Okay, so here's the Palmer Penstemon, and it's filled with water. It's labeled, just gonna seal the top. So the idea is to have these in hot water basically for 12 hours. Somehow that seems to break dormancy really, really quickly on other seeds, so we're just gonna see if it happens with this Penstemon. I only have, well, I think I have one Penstemon in my yard. I'm not actually sure that it is, but I know I have planted them in the past, and I don't have what you think I would have given the amount of seed I put in. So we're just gonna see if this helps, and if I can even get, 5 plants by the time spring comes. Just having 5 plants going to seed in your yard is enough to establish like a really nice clump or really nice display of a flower. So they're gonna go in here in the hot water, and that's pretty much it. Sometimes I weigh these down, but I actually think that these are okay. The water, this whole thing is 110 degrees, whether it's at the top or the bottom. It's the same temperature. That's kind of the point of it. So I think they're okay the way they are. and I will come and turn this off in 12 hours and show you what to do with them next. Okay, so I also have my water germination experiment going. The BFP stands for Blue Mountain and Firecracker and Palmer. Those are the three types of Penstemon seed that I have in these little containers here. They are up on my windowsill to get light because the sowing instructions said to barely rake these seeds into the soil if you're going to direct sow them, which indicates to me that they probably need light to germinate. I actually looked on a web page of somebody that grows a lot of Penstemon, and it said that some of them need absolute darkness and some of them need absolute light. But just looking at the directions on these packets, since it did say just to barely scratch them into the surface, to me that says they probably need light to germinate. So we're going to try them up here and we'll see how it goes. Time to have some coffee and finish the next phase. Okay, so I'm all set up to do the next step. My seeds have heat treated for 12 hours. I'm going to get them out of the sous vide now. I have my setup here with quart bags for each variety of seed that I did. I actually added a couple varieties after I spoke on the last video, and I have a half sheet of paper towel for each of these. And my tripod broke, so I'm going to be having to film this by hand. So hopefully I'll just have to kind of come back and forth. Okay. So I have my seeds out. They're all in their little containers there. And I also have this. This is like a medicine dropper that I think probably Walgreens or some drugstore at some point in time gave me when I had children that were small enough to need something like this to take medications. So I am going to use this to work with the smaller seeds. And the larger seeds are pretty easy to handle just as it is. Okay, so here is the dropper. You see it just kind of works nicely. Let's see, get some more of these. Just give them a little space. If some of them fall too close together, just spread them out a little bit. Okay, this is the last one. I'm going to put it right here. And I have them all down. Dribble a little water on there. Okay, so I'm going to fold this up. Just fold it over. And then I fold in the edges just a little bit so it can fit in the bag. Okay, there it is, ready to go in the bag, all folded over so that it fits. Okay, and that's the finished bag. I'm going to finish these other ones, but one thing I want to point out is something that I see on YouTube and tutorials a lot where people do something and then they don't have the same results and they wonder why. So I want to point something out here. Before I started doing this, this counter was wiped down and clean. If you have any sort of bacteria or mold that touches any of this and you put it inside of a sealed bag, it's going to mold. So you need to make sure that the area that you're working on is very clean to start with, and you want to seal these up very quickly to avoid any sort of contamination. Another thing about this is that these paper towels are not super wet. I just put the seeds on this. I was using the dripper. As you can see, the top of the towel isn't wet at all. And the bottom is not so wet that there's like water coming out from the edges. It just needs to be damp. It doesn't need to be sopping wet. Okay, so I have my Penstemon done. Those are all smaller seeds that I used this dropper for. It's kind of a big dropper. The echinacea seeds are a lot bigger, so I have strained those and I've started putting them on their own towel. Okay, there's echinacea. I have a lot of echinacea because I already know that it works with echinacea, so I put more in there. Everything is dated and packed up and ready to go. Every time I've done this, I have put it on my west-facing window, and it's been during winter whenever I've done this, so the window has been cold most of the time, and it's been getting light. So that's what I'm going to try here. Okay, so here are my bags. They are on the window. It is about 30 degrees outside. I'm not sure if that temperature, if that temperature is part of the reason why I've had luck with this, but in the past, it's all just a big experiment. I do have a lot of echinacea seeds here, and I know that most of these will sprout, so I'm going to make sure that I put together a 60 plug tray. I have one of those. I use bootstrap farmer trays because I can use them again and again. I'm going to make sure that's prepared with, by tomorrow or the next day, because as soon as these start sprouting, I like to be able to put them in the tray, and it's nice to have one already prepared. So there they are. We're just going to check these every day, and when they sprout, most likely I'll be able to see it through here, but sometimes looks are deceiving. So every few days you do need to open these bags just to really check and make sure you're not missing something.